I'm concerned about that. DOJ says Yale Medical School discriminated against Asian and white applicants. The Department of Justice on Thursday accused Yale Medical School of discriminating based on race in its admission by favoring black and Hispanic applicants over white and Asian ones. Remember, this is not even a matter. I mean, all of this goes into it, but this is medical school. This is who's going to be a doctor. This is one of the top medical schools in the country, not taking the best students, not taking the best and brightest, not, maximizing the potential of the most intelligent, most hardworking in our country by putting them on a fast track to, elite professions. No, instead they've decided to weaponize their position to hurt white people. And so that's what they're doing. So, I just don't understand why people don't take this more seriously. This is life and death. This is your doctor capable or not? Did your doctor actually do what is necessary to achieve something, or were they given a leg up? Because, they might be able to squeeze through on, certain testing requirements. They may be able to get a little boost here or there to a position they don't exactly qualify for. But when the rubber hits the road and their knowledge or lack thereof is the determination on whether you survive or not, there's not going to be anybody there to give them a little boost. There's not going to be anything in that process that allows them to achieve above their capabilities. You're just going to die. Like that's just, once they're doctors, and God forbid. I mean, I just don't understand why, again, people aren't taking this more seriously. The department's allegations are based on a year-long investigation that sought to determine whether Yale's admissions practices were in compliance with federal civil rights law. The agency determined that the medical school continues to intentionally discriminate against applicants based on their race, despite a 2023 Supreme Court ruling. And we talk about this over and over. I'll say it again. The only thing this country needs is the ruthless application of already existing laws. That's all that we're missing, because the thing you have to understand, these people are bad. They're evil people. They're immoral people. They don't care what's right. They just don't. They don't care what is the moral thing to do, the ethical thing to do. They don't care what the legal thing to do is versus what they're doing being illegal. It's whether or not they will be punished for it. That decides whether they do something or not. This is what I mean. Human beings, us real human beings with souls and consciousness, we're not going to do evil things, even if we have the ability to do it and never get caught. Right? My favorite illustration, that liberty is an unguarded cookie jar. Right? Because liberty requires virtue. You're not virtuous for, not doing something because you are physically incapable of doing it. Right? They say don't steal the cookie from the cookie jar. If the cookie jar has a security camera on it that's recording 24/7 and a lock, and you don't steal cookies because you're physically incapable of stealing cookies and getting away with it, you're not a good person. You didn't succeed in, suppressing your drive to, steal something for yourself. You're just a victim of circumstance like anybody else is. If, however, you have the ability, you could get away with it. Nobody would ever know. You could benefit yourself and harm somebody else and be off scot-free. Do you do it then? That's the question. Do you succumb to your sin, or do you rise above it and recognize that even without an enforcement mechanism, you do the right thing because it's the right thing, because our society depends on people willfully, voluntarily doing the right thing? These people do not believe that. They do not have that mindset. They don't have, the souls capable of recognizing the metaphysical construct of good and evil in our world, our universe. So if they can get away with it, they will. So you can't let them get away with it. What I'm saying is you can't just tell these people, hey, the Supreme Court says you can't do this anymore. I've shown you videos, undercover videos, multiple of them over the past couple of months. People go into recruitment offices in university, undercover, hidden camera, and they say, we're still discriminating, right? We're still doing DEI. And the people go, yeah, of course, we call it something different now. They made DEI illegal, so we rebranded it as EDI, and now we just keep doing it that way with a wink and a nod because, as long as we're adhering to the letter of the law, the spirit doesn't really matter. That's how these people think. So, again, The Supreme Court comes out and says it's a matter of federal law. You cannot discriminate, even positive discrimination, affirmative action, whatever label you want to put it on. It's just discrimination. That's it. You're just disadvantaging certain people because of their immutable characteristics. The Supreme Court says you can't do that, and they just keep doing it. They just keep doing it. They don't care. Why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they do it? Because it's wrong? Yeah, okay. And who's going to punish them? That's the only thing that matters. Who's going to force them to do the right thing? And not just force them to do the right thing. Like you have to know these little weasel tactics they have. Oh, we don't do DEI, but now we are requiring a biography section of the application that'll be weighed higher than any other part of the application. We don't say that we're only choosing black people. It's just we can tell from your biography whether you've faced hardships throughout your life and therefore deserve the position more than other people. None of this makes any sense. It's all just discrimination. It's illegal, and yet they're still doing it. So it's not really illegal, is it? I mean, you can call something illegal, but if you just keep doing it and nothing happens to you, it's not really illegal. That's the way the world works. That's just how it is. So they've done this study, and we'll get to some of the numbers because they are shocking, just how much they discriminated, just how, like, you could really be, like, 500th in your class and get accepted to Yale if you're black, if you're the number one, if you're the valedictorian, but you're white or Asian, you're not getting chosen. Like, again, just, I mean, imagine the negative effects that has on one person's life, one person that would otherwise go on to be the chief of medicine at Johns Hopkins, right? This person who is capable and brilliant and, you know, going to make positive changes for all of humanity. Yeah, they get to go to the state school now. They'll go to the state school and they'll have a nice little practice in some small town, but they're not contributing to the, you know, wider march of civilization and progress. They're sort of shuffled off to the side and squandered. It's their potential and their intelligence and their genius their hard work is going to be squandered because they want to put a less capable person that person will be in charge of Johns Hopkins at some point, and we'll see how that goes, I guess. I guess we'll see how that goes. And of course, the other thing is, if you're bringing in people who aren't actually qualified, if you are lessening requirements for certain races, certain genders, what do you think the school is going to do when those people start failing? Are they going to let them fail? Are they going to suddenly be part and parcel with not just, you know, letting these people in, but then allowing them to drop out? And Thomas Sowell's gone over this a million times. Again, it's not even a question of your position. This is just how reality works. This is just the factual progress of temporal existence. Like, if you are bringing in less qualified people, you're either setting them up to fail, you're either going to bring somebody in who's not able to keep up with their classmates and is going to be probably ostracized, probably not have a lot of self-confidence, right? They went from being the most brilliant person in their entire high school to being the dumbest person at Yale. That's not good for them. And then if they drop, what happens if they drop out? What if they cling on? They're like, I made it, but I got into Yale, but I got to do this. And they cling on and they barely scrape by and they do the extra work and they do the extra time to get that extra credit. So they stay in school, and after 3 years, they just finally, I can't take it. They drop out. Well, now they've wasted 3 years. They've paid for 3 years of school. They still got to pay that back. That's not getting, you know, wiped out just because they didn't go. So now you've taken somebody who would be great in a state school. You send the person, you know, who doesn't have the greatest score, but really good for, you know, their high school or whatever it is. You send them to the state school. You put them with their peers. You put them with other people who are as capable as them. Then they can have a great life and you can maximize their potential. But every part of this is negative consequences, because the only other option is you're either, you know, Yale is either going to be complicit in like tricking these people, putting them in positions where they don't belong so they fail, and then you're going to have this like massive failure rate where it's like, Yale, this is a problem. Why is it that all of the black people in your school failed after 2 years? Can you explain that? Like, that would be an investigation, right? Is Yale racist? Why are they forcing all of the black and Hispanic people to fail? Well, that's actually what would happen if you brought in a bunch of black and Hispanic people who don't actually have the grades to get to Yale. What do you think is going to happen? Duh. But they're not going to let that happen. So the only other option is basically lower the quality of the grading. Is go, well, if we kept up the standard that we previously had, all these people would fail and it would look really bad for us. So I guess we got to lower the qualities. I guess we got to lower the requirements. And we're just going to see and just repeat this over and over and over for all the different students. Every year you got another class matriculating. Every year it's going to be degraded by that little percentage point. And after a couple of decades, it's going to be essentially, they're going through the Oscar process, right? They're going through the process of the Academy Awards, where at a certain point, it's just not going to mean anything. The prestige of Yale, it's not going to mean anything because people are going to know it. That doesn't mean you were the best of the best. That doesn't mean we're one of the top people in the entire country, chosen as this elite class of people, this elite cohort that gets to go to the Ivy Leagues. It's going to be like, oh, they went to Yale? Was he black? Is that why? Yeah, it's just not going to mean anything. Oh, they won the best picture? Okay. Is that because they best served the anti-white deconstructionist agenda of the Hollywood scum? Like, it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean you have the best picture. It just means you have the picture that comported itself most with the psychotic anti-white desires of the idiots in charge. So goodbye, Yale. Au revoir. Arrivederci. You're over. It's done. It's a matter of time now. They can reverse this at any point, but they won't. So there you go. They'll go the way of Skull and Bones, the Yale Institute that is now literally run by Puerto Rican trans women. So there you go. There's your alma mater, George W. Bush. There's your alma mater, John Kerry. This is your mindset. This is your belief system. This is what it's done to your institutions. I wonder what they think about that. Can we get John Kerry on that? I want to know what John Kerry thinks about the fact that his beloved Skull and Bones organization is now literally run by Portuguese or Puerto Rican transsexual women. Is that what he intended when he holds the position that he holds? I don't think so. Again, I didn't even, it's just like there's so many stories every day. I'm literally just the next story in my stack. These aren't like organized or anything, but the next one is in a mandatory anti-racism class, Penn State told 1L law students they must, quote, acknowledge the reality of systemic racism and dismantle systems that radicalize, subordinate, and oppress. And again, this is why it's almost this is why the victory of the election is kind of hollow, right? Because the whole thing after 2024, the 2024 election was woke is dead. Right? This whole idea of, you got BlackRock going, yeah, ESG is not such a great thing. You've got, they eliminate DEI or ESG and all of the, federal agencies. And they also, issue this Supreme Court ruling that affirmative action, positive discrimination is also against the Constitution. But they all just continue to do it anyway. And even if they don't, sometimes they'll rename it, sometimes they won't. But regardless, this mindset, this mental poison still being poured in the ears of students around the country at just as, if not greater rate than it ever was before Trump got elected the second time, which is why the whole point of Trump getting elected that second time, not backing down on his statements, but doubling down on everything that he believed. He was not less radical than he was in 2016 or 2020. He was more radical. He talked more about this stuff, more about the immigration, more about the DEI. And the only way we have to fight back against this is through the government. It would be great if everybody would stand up and fight back against this, but the way that our culture is right now, the way our society is constructed at this point, makes it actually impossible for a lot of people to fight back and unwise for most people to fight back. And they have you trained in this to a large degree. I do think we can fight back as individuals more than we give ourselves credit for. What we're missing, what we really need, is like the Jewish mom energy. Have you ever seen a Jewish mom who thinks you're messing with her kid? You'd rather face a mountain lion, right? It's like, good luck, buddy. Where are our moms? Where are our dads? Where is our unwillingness to go along with this stuff? Because that is the mindset. And, it is kind of stereotypical. It is stereotypical. It is just a sort of stereotype. And obviously, Seen some very, very powerful, white European mama bears before, don't get me wrong, or of any race, obviously. But whatever that stereotype is what we need, right? Whatever that stereotype or cliche is, it kind of works, right? I try to explain all the time, and I get it. It's not easy to actually do in your life, which is why you need the evidence to back it up, which is why you need to sort of form these thoughts and form these arguments in your mind before you're in the situation. Because what can happen is the other side has this like rock solid, well-formed confidence in their views. And they'll throw you curveballs. They'll throw you zingers. You might think, hey, I'm talking about the principle of the matter here, and I think it's wrong. People are discriminated against. But they'll hit you with something out of left field. And if you try to go on that direction, you're going to be lost and tangled up in the weeds. What you need to do is establish the principle of what you believe, establish why what you believe is correct, and just hammer it home. And don't try to convince them, right? You don't have to try to convince them. You don't have to, argue with them and debate them and they make a point and you make a point. You need to impose your moral superiority upon them. But first you need to establish it. And it's the same thing that happens with things like vaccines. Vaccines is kind of the greatest example, because if you go in and have a kid and are there in the room with the nurse who's got the needles, there is so much psychological pressure on you to let it happen. And they're going to be bringing out stats, and they're going to be using little, interpersonal tricks, even, and not even necessarily on purpose, but just, we are social creatures, and we respond very strongly to embarrassment or anxiety. And obviously they're going to be sitting there going, oh, you're not getting the injection for your kid? Do you know what whooping cough looks like? Do you know what tuberculosis does to a kid? And if you don't have the facts at command, or at the very least, like, I'm not very good with details, right? I know generalities most of the time. Other people very good at details. Jay Dyer, Jason Burmis, just on Third Hour, like, I say it with them because I admire their ability to go, oh, that was this agreement signed in 1987 with Henry Kissinger and this person, and they did it on this trip. I will interpret all that, and I'll absorb it, and then I'll forget all the names and dates, and I just have the vague idea behind it, which that can be enough. That can be enough as long as you're confident in what you believe. So, like, I'll sit there and I'll learn about vaccines, and I'll learn everything, and I'll confirm in my own mind, okay, that vaccine is not worth it. That vaccine is not worth it. They're none of them are worth it. I've looked into it. I've double checked it. I've looked at the things that the establishment says. I've looked at what the radical anti-vaxxers say. I've tried to find, and I've come to the conclusion, we're not doing vaccines. Now, then when you're in the, room with the nurse going, oh, but do you know that 14% of children who die have died from whooping cough? If you can have the facts on hand to go, well, they, 14%, but if you consider if you can go back and forth with them like that and you have the facts, in your mind and at hand ready to go, fine. I'm not really like that. Instead, it's like, well, but da-da-da-da-da. And well, do you know that? I just go, we're not getting vaccines, lady. I already thought about this. It's just not happening. I'm not getting vaccines. I don't have to explain to you why. So you can stop suggesting them now. Thank you. I'm not going to debate. I'm not going to, get into a back and forth with them. I already know. And even if I can't, resuscitate, I can't just, recall with perfect accuracy why I came to that conclusion. I did come to that conclusion. I did study the facts. I know this is the right answer. And then I'm just going to roll with that and just not move about it and go, look, I already did the research. I don't remember why, but I know this is correct. So sorry, that's it. But it's better if you can have the facts at hand. But with things like, it's sort of stuff all the time. I was going back and forth on X earlier this week. I should find the tweet or the back and forth, because it was a comment from somebody who was talking about basically being discriminated against, or being in a hospital where people were, I think it was insulting Charlie Kirk, like mocking Charlie Kirk. And that's one of those instances where you go, a father was murdered in cold blood. That's wrong. That's wrong. And you can have confidence in that position, and you can assert that position. And no matter what they say, you can come back at them with, you're justifying the murder of a father who never hurt anybody. What the hell are you talking about? Well, but I mean, he supported guns, so I support guns. You want me shot in the head? Is that what you're saying? You want everybody who likes guns to be shot in the neck in front of their children? What the hell is wrong with you? This is what it takes. It takes the Jewish mom energy, right? Yeah, not to paint with a broad brush here, but how many schools in this country teach flagrantly, blatantly, offensively anti-white curriculum? Do you know the SPLC writes your curriculum? Fox News just did a big expose about it. Of course, they're trying to be like, maybe they're making them racist like the KKK. Stop, retards. They're filling your children's mind with leftist, activist propaganda. They're training them to be little communist agents for the destruction of your country. The SPLC is writing the curriculum for elementary schools. Let me ask you this. How do you think the Jewish community would react if they learned the KKK was writing curriculum in elementary schools? Do you think it'd be one story on Fox News? Or do you think it would be a continuous push with the most aggression you've ever seen until the people that did this are fired, their own people are put in their place, and agreements have been signed and finalized and legally enforced? That it's the reaction you need to have. I hate having to use this as the image for it, but literally, if you find out that your elementary school is teaching your kid to be gay, teaching your kid to be trans, teaching your kid to hate white people, that's what's in these curriculums. You need to react like a Jewish mom that just found out their kid is being taught Holocaust denial. That's the reaction it needs to have. It needs to be like, what the hell is wrong with you? Who the hell do you think you are? What did you do to my child? You have just made an enemy for life. And then you need to destroy the lives of the people that did this to your children. That's the only response that works. Like I said, I get it. It's not always easiest. That's why you have to find the principle. That's why you have to impose the principle. That's why you have to just, plant your flag and go, I'm right about this, and I'm going to hammer it home until I get what I want. And what I want is to be treated equally. What I want is to be treated like a human being and to be treated fairly and to be listened to. That's it. Again, the hard part is that our society is so warped that, maybe people were right. When I was talking about the guy who was, he was actually training to be a doctor. It was in his residency, his training program. And one of the other residents was basically saying that Charlie Kirk deserved it. And hey, maybe the people, I said, hey, you should have stood up against that. That's not the type of thing you just let people say. That's crazy, because you are the right one. And you always have to escalate it. Okay. So if you go, and I should find it because I wrote the template. I wrote the template of what you need to say, where you just go, I no longer feel safe working with these people after I know what they said. I need to know what you're going to do to make this an equitable place to work. That's the script right there. I don't feel safe with these people and what they've said. I need to know what you're going to do to make this a safe place for everybody. And if they say, well, this is a little bit, you say, no. What are you going to do? Because I've got the local news on the line right here and I'm about to blow this up. Or I've got a team of lawyers that's about to rain hell on you for discrimination, for an unsafe working environment. What are you going to do? And it better be satisfactory. So let me know. But hey, maybe people are right. Maybe it would be like, oh gosh, I guess this guy who doesn't want people celebrating the murder of a father, he's far right. Oh, this is dangerous. He should get kicked out. Okay, in that case, launch a lawsuit. Sue them for $20 million and live the rest of your life on a beach. You have to. And And if it doesn't go anywhere, if you can't find representation, then you got to start making videos. You got to start getting in front of, congressmen and saying, hey, this is a big problem and I'm going to make it a big problem. If you want to be on my side, you can win this with me, or you can be my opposition. And just so you know, we're on the right side of this, you're going to lose. So you're welcome to join us in this crusade. Just escalate. Just don't take no for an answer. Don't take, a pat on the head and a sincere apology, but we're not doing anything about it. No. They have to correct the situation. They have to rectify things. The squeaky wheel gets the grease. So when you've got this like mandatory anti-racism class, Penn State forcing law students to watch videos about how white people are evil, and we can go to the video. They're only allowed to do it. They're only capable of doing this because all of the white Christian people just sit there quietly while they get discriminated against. All you got to do is stand up. All you got to do is not take it. It's not that hard. Just like, where's the balls? Where's the chutzpah? Seriously, have we been beaten down and demoralized to that point? Because it seems like we have. It seems like even when I'm sitting here going, hey, it's not okay for doctors in hospitals to be celebrating the death of somebody they disagree with politically. Do I need to explain why? Do I need to explain why the people who will be treating bullet wounds need to not care who the person is? Like my God, it's just so obvious what the right answer here is. You got to stand up for it. So let's go to this video. This is the Penn State mandatory anti-racism class. Let's watch.
There wasn't an institutional message. And this is the first place I've ever taught where it is baked into the DNA. It is everywhere from the ground up, that being a lawyer is not just about doing, a set of tools or skills. Being a lawyer is about recognizing and combating injustice. The REPL course, I think, is powerful precisely because you're starting it right away. It's not elective, it's not optional, because this is not one way to be a good lawyer, right? Paying attention to these things is what it means, one of the things it means to be a good lawyer. And, as someone, I'm a trans woman, right? And this year, there is a lot happening against people in my community, and having a focus from the outset on recognizing and combating oppression and injustice is meaningful to me in a way I cannot describe.
I want to say today that you all officially become part of this broader coalition and effort towards building a more anti-racist, equal, under the law approach to our law and legal systems. This is the part of the coalition that I'm really excited about. We are taking action to disrupt and dismantle systems that racialize, subordinate, and oppress. We, as part of our broader anti-racism commitments here, want to acknowledge the reality of systemic racism, subordination, and oppression. Acknowledging says this exists, right? Racism, subordination, and oppression exists, and it has existed. We start with that as a foundation for this course as well.
The great thing about REPL is that when I talk about this idea of inclusivity, it doesn't matter how much experience you've already had with learning about systemic racism, whether you think, oh, I already know about this, like I don't need to pay attention. Well, you do, even if you've already learned, or if you're in a position where you're white and you don't have to worry about these things. You're like, oh, I don't need to pay attention. Well, you do too. But at the end of the day, you are in a unique position of power to be able to help people that, you may not be part of a marginalized group. You may have the privilege to speak for folks that don't have that privilege to speak for themselves.
What the problem is, according to the movement, is white supremacy. And the problem is patriarchy. And unless we abolish white supremacy, unless we eradicate patriarchy, we're still going to have problems. I'm most persuaded by the theory articulated by the movement for Black Lives. I think that our criminal legal system is not about keeping families and communities safe. It's about keeping Black people in their place.
Jesus Christ. I mean, well, what else are you supposed to say? Starts off with a male voice and a female picture. That was the first hint something was going on. That was the first hint. What is there even to say about this? It's Penn State. This is Pennsylvania State University. This is one of the most celebrated universities in our country. And this is this type of stuff that it's like they're talking in a way that just assumes that everybody agrees with this and believes this utter nonsense. White supremacy in America in 2026. They think their job as lawyers is to destroy white supremacy, to disrupt systems that are race. It's like, I don't know how you get out of it. Like they should all be arrested. It's like at this point, I'm like, what do you do? You're going to talk to these. You're going to try to convince these people. They are psychotics. They're completely in fantasy land. They are literally think their job is to train people to just systematically and ruthlessly destroy everything that built America. Like that's just what they're doing. And this is one of the, this is what happens if you don't actually teach fundamental American values from childhood up. Is they'll use terms, they have no idea what those mean. What does justice mean? Can they explain what justice is? Nothing they talked about there has anything to do with justice. There is nothing just about punishing somebody when they didn't commit a crime, on the face of it. But what are reparations? There's nothing just about rewarding somebody who didn't do anything to deserve a reward. That's not justice, that's injustice. But in their mind, that's racial justice, social justice. That's what they actually think their job is. That's what they're training people to do. It's just sick. It's just unbelievably sick. So I don't know how we fix this problem if you don't have people within the institution not powerfully and angrily pushing back against this, knowing full well exactly what they're saying when they say we have to dismantle white supremacy. And they frame it that way. So if you're like, wait, you're a racist, they go, oh, so you're in favor of so you're a Nazi, you're in favor of white supremacy? There is no white supremacy in this country. It is the opposite. All they're saying is destroy white people, destroy white nations, destroy anything that came out of Europe, essentially. Because those things often value and codify liberty and freedom of choice and freedom from coercion in government. And again, if they even remotely believed in the things they say, this wouldn't even be an issue. Because when they say things like, we're really pushing for, anti-racism and equality under the law, if they meant that, great. That's great. Then they would be on our side. Then they would be sitting here with me going, why the hell are you treating white people so badly? Why the hell are you discriminating against white people? If they believed literally anything they say, then they would have to now, by virtue of these principles, be advocating for and exclusively for white people, because white people are the only ones being discriminated against right now. They don't mean that, though, do they? Just like we have minority measures, minority programs to help minority populations. Well, in Texas, I'm a minority. There's more Hispanic people in Texas than white people. Do you think it all just switched over to me all of a sudden? Do you think I'm getting the benefits of being a minority now? Of course not, because it's not at all what it means. So if they had any genuine bone in their body, if they actually cared about equality, if they actually cared about justice or any of these terms they invoke, there wouldn't be an issue. They're all code words. They're all crap. They're all abject and blatant, willful lies from these people. Kind of sucks. Kind of really sucks. But if we don't vote for the right people, elect the right people who can end this crap and not just change the letter of the law, but actually impose the spirit of the law, until we have the ruthless application of already existing laws, this country is over.